So our past couple conversations with leaders have been great, thought-provoking, lots of good conversation, lots of great ideas heard. So I am really looking forward to today. So we are talking about social intelligence because we know that working in the sector isn't so easy in 2024. There's the ongoing challenges, of course, of increasing resident acuity. There's labor shortages, there's funding issues. People feel grumpy. They feel a little overwhelmed, they feel tired, which can lead to all sorts of problems, including safety challenges for the people that you care for, as well as for your workers. Yet some leaders, some organizations, they have the challenges, and I don't know how they navigate these issues. It's kind of inspiring. They somehow are gracious, they are wise, and they are able to bring out the better in people, in themselves, and those that are working with them. So, how do they do that? Well, a lot of it is social intelligence. So that is why we are focusing on it in our 2024 Conversation with Leaders series that's hosted by SaveCare BC. So specifically today, here's what we've talked about in the past. We did a kickoff. We looked at incivility last time. Today, we are talking about when there's an abundance of social intelligence and what that makes possible, which is cat out of the bag, psychological safety. So here's a bit of today's agenda, just to give you a sense, doing a bit of definitions, defining so we're on the same page, talking about how social intelligence fits in with it. And then enough of me talking. You are going to get to chat with each other because that is where the real interesting stuff can come up. So it's all very exciting. And I'm recognizing that you probably have a lot on the go. You were not sitting around eating bonbons before now. Sometimes we come to these things, our bodies are here, but our minds not so much. So we're going to do just a brief activity to bring our bodies and minds into the same place at the same time, and we will see how we do. So if you can, sit in a posture that has you feel both relaxed and alert. So your feet flat on the floor, your hands on your lap, and you're welcome to close your eyes or cast your gaze downward. It's just so that you're not distracted visually. And we're going to take 3 diaphragmatic breaths. So, what we're going to do is, if you can, take a deep breath in, making your tummy go big, holding for a moment or three, and then long exhale out, letting your tummy go flat or as flat as it can go. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Taking another deep breath in, breathing down to your toes, and holding. And then exhaling. Try to have your exhale be longer than your inhale. And we'll do it one more time because it feels so good. Another deep breath in, holding for a moment or four, and then exhaling. Maybe wriggling your toes, your fingers, as you kind of open your eyes and return to the room. Excellent. So hopefully more arrived, body and mind in the same place at the same time. So taking this kind of pause is kind of what social intelligence is about. It's certainly one of those things that can have your social intelligence step forward. So let's get started with what happens when there is an abundance of social intelligence and what it can create, which is psychological safety. So I'm pretty sure you've heard of what psychological safety is. So let me just do a quick primer to ensure that we are on the same page. So the idea of psychological safety was popularized by Harvard professor Amy Edmondson. So as a postdoc student, she was studying hospital medical teams, and she was aiming to identify which teams were the best performing ones. So she had assumed that those would be the ones who made the fewest medication errors, which kind of makes sense, seems reasonable. Except when she looked at the data, it turned out it was the opposite. These better performing teams seemed to be making more errors than worse performing teams. It's like, what? How does that work? Like, head scratcher. So when she dug a little deeper, she discovered that it wasn't that the best teams were making the most errors. No, the best teams were admitting to errors and they were discussing them more often than the other teams. So she noticed that these best teams, they had something that other researchers before her had called psychological safety. It's that shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking, that everyone believes that no one is going to be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. And she found that this facilitated a climate of openness where it was safe for folks to learn, even if, they weren't Einstein and they made mistakes, they had questions. It was safe for folks to contribute. Whoopsie, sorry. Safe to contribute, to bring their best, to be their best selves, to kind of be themselves. So they felt like they belonged. They weren't afraid of being marginalized or punished in some way just for being themselves. It's all good, right? All good things. I want to be clear. This does not mean that psychological safety is about being nice. It's not about people always agreeing with each other, this unequivocal praise and support for everything you say, even when what you say is not great. So it's not about that. And it's not about relaxing or lowering standards or this kind of anything goes culture. No, these are high performing cultures. And it's also not about feeling all comfortable, and warm and cozy. No, no, all the good things that psychological safety is, right? That we know from Amy Edmondson's research about kind of more mistakes, but more conversations because they're actually talking about it more. Does any of that matter in seniors' care? Well, yes, it does. So, research by Dr. Edmondson and many others found that teams with psychological safety, they feel good, they do. They also perform better on all sorts of metrics for quality, productivity, innovation. And there's been significant amounts of research done specifically in healthcare that clearly shows that a psychologically safe environment curbs psychological distress for healthcare workers. It reduces burnout. So that was important before COVID. Now, yeah, kind of vital. There's also, very interestingly, a very clear relationship between physical safety and psychological safety. So lots of studies on it. Healthcare teams with poor psychological safety, listen to this, they are more exposed to occupational violence. That means from the people that they're caring for and also from their colleagues. They also report increased musculoskeletal pain. I think I'm saying that wrong, but hopefully you get what I mean. There's also higher worker injury. So there's less physical safety for the workers and negatively impacts patient safety. So psychological safety enables a safety culture, making it safer physically and psychologically for your workers and for the people that you serve. And if you're thinking, yeah, okay, sounds nice, it still sounds kind of too warm and fuzzy for me. Well, just consider this on a practical level. What we know is that psychological safety also reduces employee churn. When people feel safe at work, psychologically and physically, they overlook a lot of things. They overlook things like a long commute, not always getting the shifts that are going to fit their lives and their work. It's hard. It's hard physically, it's hard emotionally. So that's a lot of talking by me. Let's hear from you. So we're going to do a poll. Let's just make sure that I have this up. Yep. So you can go to menti.com. So you can open another tab on your window or another window, or you can go on your phone. So go to menti.com and you're going to enter in this code 17147421. And we want to hear from you. What do you think? Like, how do you think psychological safety makes all of these good things happen? So this is a text field. You can enter in up to 200 characters. So how do you think psychological safety makes possible for these, great metrics for quality, productivity, innovation? What do you think it is about psychological safety that has people, improves employee well-being, that reduces burnout? What is it about psychological safety that has people physically safer, that creates and makes possible that safety culture, improves retention? So, what do you think? So, we're not seeing any results, but I think people are probably entering in stuff. So, I'm hoping that the survey, the poll, oh, here we go. Non judgmental safe place. Yeah, there's trust. Builds trust to share without worrying about penalized, but it focuses on improvement. Yes, people show that they care. It empowers risk taking. Safe communication. Yes, yes. Not afraid to speak up. Yes. It builds relationships. The acceptance of self allows for freedom of expression with trust. Yes. They become more at ease, provides employees with opportunities to improve and grow, feeling like people have your back. That's such a beautiful one, right? Not afraid to share your ideas. Yes. Safe communication. Yes, absolutely. Developing a framework for how we'll be and how we'll lead together, including when things are bad. Yes. Leadership engagement and support. It increases productivity. It does, absolutely. And yes, you're not afraid to share your ideas. You're right. All of these things. You're right. No, you're right. This is absolutely what happens. This is it. So here's what we know. Psychological safety, we know that exactly what you said. It enhances open communication so people can raise concerns, including owning up to mistakes, including reporting errors, including talking to colleagues about problematic behaviors. That it's safe to challenge, it's safe to ask questions, and it's safe to have the difficult conversations. We can have this intellectual friction instead of social friction, right? We can disagree about ideas, that people can have different perspectives on a topic or a problem. Last time we talked about something called Q-tip, quit taking it personally. It was a great idea from a participant. With this, you don't need to worry about it because it's not personal. We're just talking about an idea. It also, yes, absolutely builds trust. So, and if I trust you, I'm going to be vulnerable, including talking about what I'm struggling with. So I can own my mistakes. I can apologize for messing up. I can learn from my mistakes, which facilitates collaboration. And there's going to be more civility. We heard that, right? People have your back. There's more respect. There's more kindness. There's more engagement. Or said another way, there's less incivility, which is what we talked about last time. So there's less of that recurrent, rude, disrespectful behavior. So just want to check, does anybody noticing how this fits with all of the stuff that we've talked about in terms of social intelligence? Because there's a thing there. So a quick refresher. Social intelligence is our radar that helps us get stuff done in a social setting. And it has two parts to it. So it has the cognitive, the thinking part, our social awareness, our social literacy, understanding our own and others' feelings, thoughts, and behaviors in these interpersonal situations. But it has not only the awareness part, it also has the behavioral part, that effective social action. So that it's intelligence not just about relationships, but in them, that awareness, and I can take effective action on that awareness. And if you remember that what scientists know about this stuff is that we are wired to connect, literally, that our mirror neurons is one of the kind of the things that have our emotions be contagious. So it's like we form this interbrain circuit. There's a literal neural bridge between us through our mirror neurons. And that connection is pretty powerful. And the more that we're in sync, the more rapport we have, the more positively we feel about the encounter and also about each other, which makes it possible, right, to be creative, productive, more efficient in making decisions. All of those things that we know improves with psychological safety, which has me think social intelligence, psychological safety. I don't know. It's a little bit like a chicken egg thing, right? I'm not sure which one comes first. Maybe, I don't know, like social intelligence makes psychological safety, because what we know is that social intelligence facilitates open communication, empathy, conflict resolution, trust. Yeah, you've already heard those things because that's what you get with psychological safety. It's all those things that have people feel safe to take risks and to be themselves. So just consider for a moment what happens when people don't have a lot of social intelligence, either generally or specifically in a moment because they're freaked out. They can't read each other. Right? People feel uncomfortable. They misunderstand. They're not in sync. So what happens? We have less creativity, we have less engagement, less collaboration. So if you look at a team with psychological safety, you're looking at a team with social intelligence. And that's partly why this year's theme for the conversation with leaders is about social intelligence, because it's a vital how-to, it's a vital strategy to creating a safe workplace for your workers and for the people your organization serves. So that's a lot of talking about kind of context stuff. Let's look at you. What's the psychological safety like in your workplace? So again, we're going to go to menti.com And here we go. And kind of, we're asking an interesting question. So it's the same code, 1714721, and you're entering this time on a scale of 1 to 10. And we have two questions where 1 is bad, 10 is excellent. Two questions about psychological safety. What's it like in your workplace the majority of the time? And what was it like during COVID? Oh, just threw that in there. It seemed like it was interesting. So just kind of see. So 1 is bad, 10 is excellent. And look, we can see the lumps. During COVID, we can see that there was a lot low, right? It's so interesting seeing these results the majority of the time. So it looks like it's better now. Kind of makes sense. There was a global pandemic that really hit the people that you serve, made it not so easy with your folks that were serving them. Intriguing. Oh, and we can see the number of responses, 24 responses. All right, so 10 is excellent, 1 is bad, midpoint for during COVID, and it's a little higher now. No, oh, a little bit lower than that during COVID. Okay. All right. Intriguing. So thinking about what psychological safety is, right? That intellectual friction versus the social friction, that climate of openness, looking at what it is for you folks now. Excellent. Intriguing. All right. So there's some room for improvement, I'm thinking. We're not, I mean, 7 is good. Come on. 7's good. It's better than the middle. And it's not 10. And it may be great to have it be more consistent. So I'm going to give you some tips. You get to choose what you want to do with the information. So here we go. So what can you do? Well, if you are a leader, there's actually a lot that you can do because you really matter. Professor Edmondson says that the most important influence on psychological safety is the nearest boss, which is kind of funny because research done on employees' physical safety says that direct supervisors are also the most important. So I don't know, coincidence? I think not. So what can you do? Well, number one thing is you can be a compassionate leader. What does that mean? Well, think of your favorite boss, the one that you learned the most from, that you grew the most with. They probably cared about you. They believed in you. They knew your strengths. They believed in your capacity. So be like them. Be like your favorite boss. You know how to do that. And what does that mean? Well, when people mess up, because they're going to, including when they're not civil or when they do things that hamper psychological safety, like they humiliate somebody for speaking up or whatever, how are you? You are kind and you are clear. It's like that Brene Brown quote. Kind is clear. Unkind is unclear. That's thing one. Thing two, be mindful of your social intelligence. Because with emotional contagion, right, you modeling it makes it easier for your team to do it too. And what does that mean? The number one thing you can do to improve your social intelligence is your self awareness, because it's the single cause of low social intelligence. We get so preoccupied, right, with our own suffering, we're blind to the impact that we have on others. So, social intelligence is about awareness of your own interior life and others' interior lives. So, clue into what's happening inside you. It's going to help you see yourself as others see you. And there's a great idea that we heard, and I mentioned it actually, from a previous conversation with leader sessions that can really help with increasing self awareness. And that's the Q tip thing. Quit taking it personally when something happens. So, people's behaviors, they do things, it likely has absolutely nothing to do with you. People are going to do what people are going to do. Don't take it personally. Or let's say you get feedback on your behaviors from a staff member or from a family member or from your boss. Okay, take it in. Take what's going to be useful, move forward with it. Or when you mess up, you make a mistake. Oh my heavens, you are an imperfect being. There it is. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that you are indeed a mere mortal.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, if we can
No
just
problem.
mute
Thank you.
those folks, that would be great. So, clue in that it just means that you are indeed a mere mortal. It's about your behavior. You messed up. Okay, there it is. Acknowledge your own fallibility, your lack of knowledge. Amy Edmondson calls it situational humility. And what we know is that when leaders express it, including owning their mistakes, it fosters psychological safety. We also know that teams engage in more learning behavior when bosses, when leaders show this situational humility. So it's a big deal. And here's the thing, building psychological safety is not all on you. Make it easy for your team to feel psychologically safe with each other. So provide instruction, time, and opportunity for them to deepen their relationships so that they can learn how to communicate with respect and engagement. We see this with the SCORE program. I've mentioned it a couple of times because it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So SCORE is an acronym. It stands for Strengthening a Culture of Respect and Engagement. It was developed at the USVA. It's been done with thousands of work teams. There's actually many research papers on it because there's a pre and post survey that you can do so you can actually see the results. So we did a pilot with a couple of care teams with a local care home in the Lower Mainland. And part of what we did was an icebreaker at the beginning of every session. And they got progressively more revealing. And in one of our last sessions, the conversation was about what happens when I mess up. So just think of this. This is frontline workers doing really hard work, talking to each other about their internal experience when they make a mistake and how do they behave. Like they're being so vulnerable with each other. It was mind blowing. Absolutely builds trust. And research done specifically in clinical settings backs this up that helping people learn how to have open conversations about emotional challenges, it builds psychological safety, it lessens burnout, makes sense because people don't feel alone, and it improves clinical learning. Do you see? It all kind of fits together. And here's what they also learn. They learn that, you know what? We're all the same. We all want to feel respected. We all have good days. We all have bad days. They also learn, you know what? We're all different. I like to get feedback right away. You might want to get feedback tomorrow. You might want to have time to digest it, whatever it is. What you're learning then is the platinum rule. Remember the golden rule? I want to be treated, treat others how you want to be treated. Well, yeah, the platinum rule is treating others as they want to be treated. And when you do that, that is social intelligence in action. Because when I feel like somebody knows me, they know what works for me, and then they act on it, come on, I feel seen. I feel like I belong, and all those other things of psychological safety that we've talked about. So that's another thing. So remember about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, we defined what psychological safety was. It's about not being punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, making mistakes. Well, research says that how mistakes are handled, it goes a long way to making that possible. So as leader, it's you facilitating the conversation around what can we learn from this versus why did you do that? It's saying, hey, let's work together to, figure out or understand what happened and how we can move forward versus humiliating others or complaining about others or gossiping about others or not saying anything and just being irritated. It's about you modeling radical candor, that Brené Brown thing, kind and clear, and also supporting people to have the difficult conversations with each other. All right. Whew, that's a lot of talking on my part. So let's have you talk. This is way more interesting. So welcome back, one and all. Would be super. It sounds like they were interesting conversations. Kajal and I didn't get to be a part of any of them. So we'd love to hear it. So if somebody, one of the safe care leaders wants or facilitators wants to pop in and just kind of do a thumbnail on examples that they heard of having psychological safety, not having psychological safety. Oh, Mark, off you go.
Yeah, we had, I think, some good discussions in my group. The short answer from everyone was no. Workplaces are not psychologically safe.
That's so interesting because we saw seven as the number. So there must be something
Yeah,
happening. Huh.
stuff was going on, and there was things where maybe within the leadership group that was supportive of each other, but there's still drama and conflicts happening within the workplace.
Mm,
And even things of people being really loyal to previous leadership,
mhm.
and that previous leadership is still hearing about things that are confidential happening in the workplace presently,
Ah,
and there's some some issues around that, and kind of like an undermining of the leaders that are in place today.
Huh. It sounds really
Uh,
yucky.
Very yucky.
Huh.
Expressed many condolences.
Yeah.
Did you want to hear about everything right now, or are we
Yeah,
gonna?
yeah, sure. So,
Oh,
any examples of psychological safety? So, it sounds like leaders, sometimes there was micro teams or sub teams or nested teams that
yeah,
had it, and in the vast majority, not so much.
yeah. The clear result was no, and some of that is like care staff and food services having some conflicts with each other,
Ah, got it.
especially since some support staff had done training to become care aides. Uh, and so now we're on the care
Ah,
side. And I
ah,
think from what I gathered was still like then telling food services what to be doing. Um,
ah.
and so some conflict in
Yeah,
that direction
drama.
and
Yeah,
trying to get some sense of like, well, we're still all on the same team. We all have the same goal. How
right.
can we come together to work on these things?
Yeah. Anything that worked, anything that folks said worked to support or
Um,
increase it.
there was some good nuggets from my group on that. One person is even today doing a workshop for 60 some staff on civility.
Oh, great.
Um, and that since they've been providing civility training, quality of care at their organization has improved.
Intriguing.
Yes, very intriguing. People are
Great.
not arguing, and
Oh.
uh, quality of care is going up. Uh, then they also said it's not their job to be nice and uh, really be empathic all the time to people that are coming to them with complaining about things, but their job is to be clear and set expectations around behaviors.
Sorry. So that's the facilitator who's saying that.
Yes, who's also a leader on site.
Got it. Got it. So it's not about the nice thing. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be clear. I'm going to be kind about it, but I need to tell you what's not working.
Absolutely. And it's not like,
Excellent.
Mary Ellen, you're doing so great. Like, oh,
Right.
thank you so much for telling me about this. But it's like, that behavior is not acceptable.
Right.
These are the
Got it.
things that we need to be doing.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Mark. Sounds like it was a robust conversation. Fantastic. Ken, let's hear
was.
from your group.
Our group is similar to Mark in the sense that the theme was it's a work in progress, and there was nobody that said, "Yep, we got it, and we know what we're doing, and it's a wonderful place." They just said there's some challenges, struggles, and it's a work in progress. Some of them have been trying sort of 10 to 15 minute sort of stand up meetings at the beginning of shifts to have more conversations to open the dialogue. A lot of work around in trying to increase communication. One person shared how different languages can provide challenges around communication. One noted how inconsistent management or a change in management has created an environment where sort of the older staff are running the show and they're resistant to change. Because this is the way we've done it. So why change? One group talked about arranging more social events to connect people so that they can share, and also starting meetings with just a check-in on how somebody's doing personally, so that we can appreciate that people have great things happening in their personal lives, but they also have challenges. And Yeah, just a real sense that there's more work to be done. People said what they wanted to try was to be more vulnerable. So to, sort of admit when they themselves make a mistake or something doesn't go right. So then the staff can see that. They can be a role model and let the staff know it's okay. We're not all perfect. And then there was also a recognition that things like social intelligence and emotional intelligence are new concepts, and they want to be more open and to utilize resources not only from SafeCare but also from organizations just to learn more. And perhaps a note that there's always been a focus on physical safety, but not so much on psychological health and safety. And so this is very new for a lot of people.
That is fascinating. That's great to hear. Just so folks know, so SafeCare has tons of resources. We'll talk about it. I also have newsletters that are super short, and you can look on my blog. So just go to my website because there's tons on that stuff. Excellent. All right, Liza, let's hear from you.
Oh, our theme was it took a while getting there. So it took both leadership and staff to create safety, but a lot of work was done by the leadership in, well, one was enforcing, for lack of a better word, company culture. So some of the ideas that were presented was that they had weekly huddles from the different floors, whether they're support staff or the frontliners, where they were encouraging respectful disagreements and encouraging even respectful disagreement even with the leadership. And when things were a little difficult, they had to there was an instance where they had to involve union reps if necessary.
Fascinating. So it's what I'm hearing is weekly huddles with everybody and senior leaders really focusing on this respectful communication, including having disagreements was cool. And you can disagree with me and doing it respectfully. So practicing kind of holding that. Excellent. And Jamie, let's hear from your group.
Okay, so same theme again. One of the leaders kindly shared she thought things were going really well. She's newer, and then realized that things were not going so well, and it was really hard for her to get that feedback. It was difficult to take. It was the workers were feeling uncomfortable. Some things that have worked are talking one-on-one with individuals, and then if necessary, bringing in that impartial third party. Um, and then we also shared, we had a conversation about in this job, everyone is so caring, their heart is really in their job. So when we do say, don't take it personal, they found that it was hard to say that and for them as leaders to feel to not take it personally. So there some things we would like to try moving forward, trying to be more open. One of the leaders is already planned a meeting um, and is just going to be open. And we talked about this. Sometimes you just need to let the emotions spill over like a wave, and then it starts to improve and get better, and just let them feel heard.
Excellent. Great ideas. And there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain. There it is. Ashifa, let's hear from your group.
Okay. So, ongoing theme, I think, was that some people felt safe, some didn't, but everyone was agreeing that management sets the tone for that. So if management keeps that open communication and builds the trust with their employees, they tended to feel a little bit more safe. And the fluctuation in teams was causing some conflict because, new people come in, you have to build that credibility again. So that was something. One person gave a really good idea. Like sometimes when we do a big team check-in, they were noticing that they could tell somebody wanted to say something, but they didn't open up. So just following up with them after the fact to be like, hey, I was kind of noticing that you wanted to say something, but do you feel more comfortable sharing now? And just being observant and noticing when somebody is, using their body language to tell you that, something is up. And also finding if some people are not wanting to share, maybe finding a peer or someone else that they can speak to and saying, hey, do you mind checking in with that person and see if maybe they feel more, that they can relate to you a little bit more and kind of doing it that way. Trust must be earned. That was a big thing. And having open communication and also being totally objective, not reactive when somebody comes to say something to you or open up about something that's bothering them, being objective and listening. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Thanks so much. Fascinating. Great ideas. Jen, let's hear from your group.
All right, lots of overlap, but I wrote some things down. So I'll just kind of answer it all at once. So certainly they tried having an opportunity where workers could write down problems and issues and leave them in for senior leaders. But then they found some people were more comfortable doing that, and then other people weren't. And some people, and then when you would engage the workers, they would say maybe, well, it didn't seem big enough to write it down, or maybe I didn't even want this to be recorded, even if I don't put my name. So really the recognition is that people want to have the opportunity to check in and provide information in different ways. And so having an open door policy was helping. But then there was also a recognition that as a senior leader, when you have an open door policy, then sometimes you almost have the leapfrog effect where workers are coming straight to a senior leader. And now we're leaving out the workers and the managers, or sorry, the supervisors and the managers and those types of issues. And just to end on the positive, so they said that there was certainly some benefits when every time they came together, they outlined and defined the scope, the focus, they set expectations, they were positive role models, and that they were available to all the staffs and all the shifts in different ways. So hopefully I justly did just for everybody that we chatted with.
That's fantastic. Great ideas. And Sheila.
Just being mindful of time, I will be quick. So in our group, we chatted about sort of the importance of integrating initiatives into day-to-day operations, right? So they just become part of those everyday practices. And that's a way to help improve psychological safety. A lot of conversation centered around the importance of building those relationships that are not about work with your colleagues. So sort of having a staff social outside the workplace or taking time to connect with colleagues on something that isn't just about work to build that rapport with them. And then another really good one was around leadership, really kind of being able to understand and hear what it's like for the care team and understanding what they're going through. Just especially if they're kind of at arm's length and the care team is so involved in a lot of the different experiences that are happening. So, and a final one, the importance of sort of recognition and positive statements. So just those little gestures of taking time to say thank you or acknowledge, express gratitude for the people around you and just how that can make a big impact.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I'm mindful, I don't think we've heard from Lisa or from Zach. Have we? Did I miss that?
No, I can be real quick. Some
Excellent.
great discussions with my group. One common theme was, despite the pandemic being not seen as a psychological safety time, it did bring a lot of awareness, so that afterwards, I think we went from like a 4 to an 8, one member said, which is great to see. So gift and a curse, I guess, of the pandemic. One thing that was really great to see from everyone in my group was they offered so many different avenues for staff to really come forward. So it's kind of meeting people where they were, whether that's having an open door policy, encouraging near miss forms, having an attendance program, or just having a daily safety huddles where everyone can go in with the expectation that it's a safe place and raise concerns. And it puts everyone on that same level from staff to managers. It's been very effective.
Excellent. That's fantastic. And Lisa, did we hear from you?
No, just very quickly, we had a lot of the same themes as came up in other conversations. I think the big one was there are some generational differences in terms of the acceptance of having meaningful conversations in the workplace around psychological health and safety, and that there was an observation that some of the older generations and some workers were in their 70s were not really open to having those conversations, and that may be grounded in trauma or in fear of being judged or being potentially not losing their jobs. So I think that was really interesting. And there's there's like 3 and 4 generations in the workforce now that have different attitudes towards this stuff. So
fascinating. Excellent. I think we've heard from everybody. These were interesting conversations. These were good. And I'm sorry that things are, it's so interesting, right? Because on the poll thing, we've heard like 7. It's like, okay, 7's not so bad. Obviously not, it's not so great. So what's next? So you already, and I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to list this stuff just so if folks need to go, you will be able to get access to the recording and also the slide deck. So go if you need to. I'm just going to be talking now about resources, and then we'll do a check-in on what people are doing. So if you have to leave, that's what you're leaving. That's what you're going to be missing. There it is. For those of you who can stay, you stay because these are good things because you are not on your own. We're not intending to add to your pile. Safe Care can help with tons of resources. They have the Working Mind, which is an evidence-based foundational training program that's done by Mark Ryan and Jen Dirksen, which you've heard from. Today, it's designed to provide practical knowledge and skills related to mental health and reduce stigma. There's also the Get Psyched, which is monthly resources on psychological health and safety from Sheila. She is Safe Care's psychological health and safety coach. She also recognizes the deep impact that mental health and wellness can have on everybody. So she's a consultant that's available to help you members improve your workplace psychological health and safety. She's also the lead on the Enhancing Psychological Health course, which is a self-paced online course that teaches you how stress works, how it can impact your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, and includes evidence-based strategies to grow your resiliency, not only at work, but also, in your life. And if you found value from today's conversation and you want to talk more, that is good because we do have, or SafeCare is hosting the SafeCare BC virtual Connect session. It's next week on November 28th. It's from 11 in the morning till noon. There's going to be 3 of the SafeCare staff there that you saw today. Sheila Fallman, the SafeCare's health and safety coach, Mark Ryan, who's the manager of education and training, and Jen Dirksen, who is the manager of occupational health and safety programs. Kajal will drop a link in the chat. The virtual Connect conversations I've been hearing are great. They are a casual space for participants of these sessions to drop in, speak with safety experts. So it's super helpful. And it's like free, and it's like just drop in sometime during that time. And it sounds like it might be super helpful. So strongly encourage you to do that. Wrapping up, here's the thing. Know that knowing stuff is nice, but doing something is actually how things change. Knowing is not going to change anything. This is a slide we use in the SCORE program. So if you change nothing, nothing changes. So let's hear from you. Instead of putting in the chat, if you can, if you're up for it, put it in the Menti, again, menti.com. We're super curious about specific actions that folks are going to take. So go to menti.com, use the code 17147421. What's one thing that you want to experiment with in the next month or between now and when we meet up again in February to improve psychological safety in your workplace? Would be so let's hear staff education to normalize mistake discussions. That is so good. That's so good because yes, in many ways, because you're normalizing mistakes. You're saying that it's okay. It's providing this opportunity for people to be transparent, intentional discord, right? So allow that intellectual friction. Have a session of our Schwartz rounds to better understand. Yes, Schwartz rounds, if anybody can Google it, it's just a great way for frontline staff to talk about kind of the emotional challenges that are happening around their work, which we know improves all sorts of good things. Have open and honest dialogue. Education, that'd be great. So curious about specifics on the education. Awareness campaign, awareness of what I'm wondering. So kind of the civility, because clearly it works together. Open communication, continuing to add self-care conversations to staff meetings. That's a great idea. Again, I think we heard it kind of as a through line. Creating a structure where this stuff is talked about on a regular basis. Everybody knows it, normalizes it, and it just makes it easier. Connecting personally, learning circles, fantastic. Listening and helping others, good, good. Using SafeCare Civility Toolkit, it's a good one. Yes, and because of increasing civility, absolutely, there's that relationship with psychological safety, and social intelligence helps with it. All right, so I'm mindful that we are over, so I'm just going to be wrapping up here. So there are a few other SafeCare offerings that might be interesting. Safety Den. Yes, Safecare's Safety Den is coming back up. It's a Dragon Den inspired event showcasing ideas from folks like you. So applications are now open. Yay! So join in. There's also a couple of webinars coming up. There's the Eat to Nourish Your Mind webinar on December 4th. That's exploring how the food you eat affects your mental health. December 12th, there's another webinar, Thriving Through the Holidays. It's about learning personal resilience strategies to help you step into a stress-free holiday season, helpful for everybody. Then again, there's of course the BC Virtual Connect session. Strongly encourage you to attend if you can next week. And then our next conversation, we'll be seeing you next year, and it's with a safety surprise. Stay tuned. It's going to be very exciting. All right. Looking forward to seeing you all then. Thank you for your time, for your attention, really, because we know you have lots on the go. Hopefully this was helpful.